So Tax Genie is built on Chat GPT 4, and you'll notice that it uses a combination of scenarios and questions about the scenario. You don't have to have a scenario. So let's dive in and give this a whirl. So we've got Tax Genie here, and you can see I don't have a scenario here. I've simply got a question. So let me fire off on this question and see what the result looks like. You'll notice that it's changing as it goes. So you'll see that it's actually doing a search and it's letting you know what it's searching. So I'll let it keep going on the search and we'll see what the result comes up with at the end. Right, so we've got ourselves a solution here. Let's have a look. So that was the question, right? And here we go. So for the 2024 financial year, electric and hydrogen motor vehicles are exempt from fringe benefits tax, provided they meet the eligibility criteria. So this comes back to batteries, hydrogen fuel cells, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, and you can see if they're used by a current employee or their associates, and the luxury car tax has never been payable on the car. The exemption also covers associated car expenses such as registration, insurance, repairs, etc. So look, the first thing I'm going to say is you can't trust this thing completely. You can simply use it to help you do your research. So now I'm going to crack open the details and I'll show you how it sort of thought through this from the scenario point of view. So there's my query. It didn't have a scenario, right? But it had a query and it had a thought. It's got a decision to go and search through the ATO website. It's got some another decision. Obviously didn't find something on the first search. It's found something, and then based on what it's found, it's compiled an answer. And that's the answer. So what we're actually doing is saying, well, okay, that's great, but when it comes to the details here, we're asking for yourselves essentially to jump in when you use the system and leave your comments. That's going to help us to fine-tune the model, and we'll ultimately be able to provide a far better result. So already we're finding that with some tuning parameters and some methods that we're using, we can get better results. So let me take you through a couple more of these. That was one, right? So let's jump in here and we will ask this question here. So fire that off. You see it's thinking. Give it a moment to think through. Changes over to now searching for something else of relevance. Changes again, searching for something of relevance again in our database. So we've actually scraped part of the ATO website for this experiment. So our question, what is the tax rate for a company that qualifies as a base rate entity? And it's come back with actually what I think is the correct result, right? So 25% for the 22 financial year, and then it was 27.5%, and it was 26 for that year, right? So a company is considered a base rate entity if its aggregate turnover is less than and has more than or has 80% or less of its assessable income as base rate entity passive income, i.e. rents, dividends, interest, that sort of thing. So you can see it's giving you some useful answers here. Let's try one more, or two more actually. So here we've got we've got a scenario, right? So we've said it's base rate entity. We've given the financial year. This is all about prompts. So when you put in the correct prompts, you're more likely to get back an accurate answer. So let's fire this off and see what we get. Oh, also notice here, you do have to be patient. There is a time lag, and if it times out, it'll just die, and then you've really got to start again, maybe put in some different kind of prompts. So let's give this a whirl. So it's thinking, it's reaching into the database, reaching into another part of the database, Axiom database this time, and we've got ourselves a conclusion. Actually it says I should calculate the tax payable using the 25% tax rate. Well, that's correct, it just hasn't done the calculation, right? So I should actually say please calculate. So put that in, and we run it again, and let's see what we get. So searching for some supporting legislation, give it a chance. Now it's searching our database. And now you can see it's running a calculation. And yes, I think we're going to end up with the right result, right? So 100,000, which is what we said. So we said it's got, oh yeah, that was in our scenario, right? 100,000 is taxable income. And it's got us a conclusion, so 25,000. And again, we've got all the details. I'm not going to go through this. I'm going to jump to one more. So our final one, our final scenario. I've actually preloaded this, right? So you can see this is a far more complex scenario, and it's to do with capital gains. So I'll just take you through that slowly. And you can see here, I've actually already run this one. So is James Edwards a significant individual in the context of the CGT concessions? So this is my question. Again, trying to make the question as meaningful as possible, use the correct terminology. And I'm going to come back to the terminology in a moment, but let's have a look at the details on this. So you can see again, a lot of thoughts, decisions and observations to reach what is ultimately a final conclusion. So let me flip through those. So we've got our first search, a decision, an observation, search a local database, a significant individual, it's coming up with percentage, and some more calculations. So it'll do a series of calculations, and based on the final outcome, it gives us an answer, and it says yes, James is a significant individual. To be honest, my own conclusion is I'm not 100% sure. So I've just simply said that there's two distributions taking place at 2 points in time. And again, this will ultimately require someone to be able to read the legislation. And here we've got definitions for both the direct small business participation percentage and also the indirect small business participation percentage. So ultimately, whoever does a final analysis and draws a final conclusion needs to be able to read through the legislation, understand the legislation, and apply that legislation appropriately given the scenario, the context of the scenario, and the question. So just bear all of that in mind. But ultimately, I think you can see that we're working on Tax Genii to help you with your questions. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask some of you to write into support@logic.net.au and see if you can join our program, because we're actually putting together a program where you can earn rewards by jumping in with your queries and your scenarios and your comments. So we're really looking for the community to get involved, help us tune our model, and provide something that helps the wider community with their tax queries and helps them make the correct decisions when it comes to tax. So hopefully that